Greetings! In this video I'll be painting a Bloodclaw from the Space Wolves great company, the Bloodmaws. I purchased the Range Refresh box set a few months ago, and I assembled all the bodies from the Bloodclaws and the Grey Hunters, and then distributed the models evenly between the two squads, primarily for pose variety. As a result of this, I'm not exactly sure which model this is based on, but everything on this model comes from either of those two kits. This video will be focusing on a single Bloodclaw, though I primed all the models from those two squads together black, followed by a base coat of the Fang through my airbrush to speed up the application. If you don't use an airbrush, you can apply the Fang over a black primer with a large brush and a few thin coats, or you can get a spray can primer with a close enough colour match. This dark grey blue will only be used for a shadow layer anyway. Now onto the painting itself. My first step was to apply rust grey all over the armour, focusing on the armour panels and avoiding the inner edges where the plates connect, allowing for the previous colour to still be visible. This helps add depth, shading, to the soon-to-be grey armour. My next step was to paint the red for the pack marking, the eye lenses, and any gems present on the model. I used Mephiston red for this. Next, I used Abaddon black to paint in the weapons and all of the undersuit bits. I then used Rhinox hide to base coat the leather pouches, the belt, and any straps or ropes over the model. Keeping it going with the base coats, I used Ulthorn Grey to paint in the left pauldron in preparation for the Bloodmaws Company Armorial. Going back to the other pauldron, I switched to Evil Sunz Scarlet and painted over the previous red, increasing the brightness. I also did this to the eyes and the gem at the same time. For the wings around the gem on the torso, I used Runelord brass. This pose can make it a bit difficult to reach, let alone film, so I went carefully with this bit. For the rest of the metal details, I used Iron Warriors. The weapons, the power pack, the helmet, and the various little nodules on the armour received some of this paint. Moving back to the pack marking, I used Averland Sunset and painted in the basic pack marking. This yellow goes over the red nicely, only needing a few coats. Had I painted the yellow before the red, it would have taken a lot more coats to get full coverage. I next used Aerial Yellow to highlight the yellow. I went back and forth between the red and yellow a few times off camera, noticing different spots that needed attention as I continued filming the video. Going back to the black, I used Mechanicus Standard Grey to highlight, doing edge highlights and also applying little scratches where mistakes were made, and also adding intentional scratches. I also used this to base coat the runestones, hanging from various armour pieces. Going back to the red, I used Wild Rider red to highlight the eye lenses and gems, painting towards the middle of the eyes and towards the top right and bottom left of the gems. Lugganath Orange finished off these bits, doing small dots to emphasise the brightness. Now onto a lot of the little details. I used Scrag Brown to paint up some definition on the leather, scratches, cuts, and highlighting some bits to add some artificial height. Deathclaw Brown was then applied to the leather, emphasising the edges and damage nicely. For the rope on the pauldron, I used Baneblade Brown as the highlight. This is fairly rough, but I don't think it needs any more. Next, I used Administratum Grey to highlight the runestones. A pretty simple application, just over the most exposed surfaces. For the little teeth, I used Zandri Dust as a base coat, and followed that with the highlight of Screaming Skull. In preparation for decals, I applied a gloss varnish over the pauldron and the upper greave. I'll apply the Bloodmaws company marking on the pauldron, and an honour marking on the greave. Going back to the steel, I applied Fang steel over most of the silver surfaces that are facing upwards, or otherwise in your face and looking bland. This really helps the metal shine. Now, onto some highlighting disguised as weathering. I used Fenrisian Grey to apply some edge highlights, but more importantly, scratches all over the model. This guy gets up close and personal, so I wanted to make that obvious when you see it. That being said, they're also fairly young, so I didn't want to go overboard. Happy with the light chipping, I went in with Rhinox hide and did some deeper chips and scratches. This works really well with little dots along highlighted edges, or along scratches painted in the previous step working to edge highlight these scratches. Instead of my usual enamel wash, I decided to try this dedicated Paneliner from AK. It comes pre-thin and has its own little brush, which will save time getting out the thinners and cleaning up afterwards. I applied this over pretty much the entire model, aiming towards the recesses but also letting it build up on the lower plates a bit. I think it works well enough, and it might replace my usual method, as it's way easier to just shake it, apply it, and wait 15 minutes for it to dry. I left it for about 45 minutes before applying my usual basing method off camera, just so that the enamel doesn't work as an adherent for the basing mix. After the basing, I sealed it all in with an ultramatte varnish. And here we have it! A Bloodclaw from the Space Wolves' great company, the Bloodmaws. I'm really happy with this one. I think I nailed the Space Wolves grey, and the weathering really makes the paint job stand out to me. The pack marking isn't great, but it's better than I thought I'd do, so that's good at least. It can be really difficult to get the angles right, similar to Hazard Stripes on the Iron Warriors. As for why I chose the Bloodmaws, there's two reasons. I wanted to represent a different company than the Blackmanes, and secondly, the Bloodmaws armorial intrigues me. Enter Ramble. The sources differ whether the eyes are red. Imperial armor uses red, modern codexes use white, as well as the transfer sheet. And what I feel is the perfect example of no one knowing what's going on anymore, Space Marine 2 shows the Bloodmaws with red eyes for the unlock, but white eyes for the armorial itself. And end Ramble. Anyway, I've been pretty sick over the past 2 weeks. This video was recorded during that, so considering that, I think this guy came out pretty well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you'd do differently, and any requests you might have. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one. I hope you stick around for the next one.